कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिगोवर्धन धाम की जय। ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन धाम की जय। मायापुर धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। Glorious assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glorious assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glorious assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for joining for our Sunday Love Feast program here at Swami Philadelphia. Today, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Today we are observing the disappearance day of Sripad Madhvacharya. So we don't have a verse, but I will recite two verses and then we can discuss about the glories of Sripad Madhvacharya. So the Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, titled Transcendental Knowledge, text 9 says, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tattvadeha punarjanma naitima meti sorajna. Also there is another verse, and we'll discuss about this. There is another verse from the same chapter, text 34. Tat vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadeshanti te gnanam gnaninas tattvadarshina. So we will discuss both these verses, how they are applicable for today's discourse. Om Ajnana-Timirandhasya Jnananjana-Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Vicharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshvara. Hare Krishna. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today on this auspicious occasion of the disappearance of Sripad Madhvacharya. Before I begin to speak, I seek blessings and permission from all the Vaishnavas who are assembled here. I take this opportunity for my own purification. There are many exalted Vaishnavas here to speak. So, how many of you agree that the disappearance day is also very auspicious? How many? One, two, so just a few handfuls. Okay, so before we go into the disappearance day of Sripad Madhvacharya, I just thought we'll take a simple question before that is, so many people die. The Vaishnavas also, due to die, and so many sinful people also die. So the question is there a difference between Vaishnavas dying and so many sinful people in this world dying? Yes? What is the difference? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, the Vaishnavas are going back to Godhead, so this is celebrated.
Jai. Yes, so Srila Prabhupada gives a very wonderful example, and answer to this question in his class on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1, text 27 to 34 in Surat, Gujarat. So he gives a wonderful example of a cat. The cat is catching a rat in its mouth, and also sometimes you see the cat is catching the cubs or the kitten in its mouth. So, is there any difference between the cat catching the rat and the cat catching the cubs in its mouth? What do you think is the feeling of the cubs in the mouth of the cat? Yes, feeling very comfortable, feeling the motherly love of the cat. And how about the rat? Yes, Prabhupada says feeling the death knell. Time is up. You are going to die. So, we can see that the same mouth is being used both for the rat and for the cubs. But the feeling is very different. So Prabhupada says, yes, there is much difference between the two. While one is feeling, or the Vaishnavas are feeling that they are going to Vaikuntha. But the sinful people are feeling that the Yamadutas, who are the constables of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, are dragging them to the hellish condition of life. So this is the difference. One is feeling he is going to Vaikuntha, and the other is feeling he is being dragged to the hellish condition of life. So we should not conclude just by seeing from outside that the Vaishnavas also die. Yeah, the process is very different. Yeah. So in the Bhagavad Gita, as we just discussed these words, Janma karma cha me divyam, evam yo veti tattvaha taha, tattva deha punarjanma naiti mamiti. So Arjuna, so it is said, the appearance, disappearance, and all the activities of the Lord are not ordinary things. They are divyam, they are spiritual, they are transcendental. So, same way, it is explained that the Lord's pure devotees, His representatives, who come into this material world, why do they come? To guide us, yes. What else?
To learn a lesson?
Yes, to fulfill the mission of the Lord, to spread the glories of the Lord. So, those pure devotees, those representatives of the Lord who appear in this material world to fulfill the mission of the Lord, to fulfill the glories of the Lord, their appearance and disappearance is also glorious, is all auspicious. Yeah? So, this is the point I wanted to make in the beginning. So, there, according to our Vaishnava principles, both appearance and disappearance is glorious, is all auspicious. Yeah? So, therefore, in accordance with these Vaishnava principles, we hold these festivals. Yeah? Anybody remembers what was Friday? A couple of days ago? Yes, Prabhu. Yes? Yes, appearance of Advaita Acharya, Haribol, thank you. And today is the disappearance of Sripad Madhvacharya. 2 days ago. Today is Sunday, right? Saturday, Friday. Okay?
Yeah,
And now the tough question, what is next Sunday?
Nityananda? Lord Nityananda?
No, whose appearance day is it?
No,
That's on the 2nd of February.
Lord Nityananda?
Yes, Prabhuji just said it's Narottam Das Thakur's appearance.
Oh.
We'll be hearing from His Grace Vishnu Vidar Prabhu next Sunday. So the point is, we are observing all these festivals because they are very glorious. Yeah? And it's the cause of celebration. Yeah? There is no need to lament. the disappearance of the Lord's pure devotees or his representatives, of course, we feel great kinds of separation, yeah, because of their physical absence. Yeah. So today is Sripad Madhvacharya's disappearance day, and we celebrate and glorify, both their appearance and disappearance. Their life is glorious, and their disappearance is also glorious. Yeah. And there is one beautiful song by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur at the passing of Haridas Thakur. He says that he reasons ill who says that Vaishnavas die when thou art living still in sound. Yeah? Vaishnavas die to live, and living they spread the holy life around. Yeah? So, very beautiful words, poem, I thought is very apt here. With these thoughts and background, I also thought we can quickly read through a very beautiful words from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 13, Text 4. There is a very beautiful verse that Srila Prabhupada gives. Is it possible? No, okay. So let me read that. I have it here. So I thought it's very beautiful. Persons who hear from a spiritual master with great labor and for a long time must hear from the mouths of pure devotees about the character and activities of pure devotees. Pure devotees always think within their hearts of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead who awards his devotees liberation. I found this purport really very, very insightful, very inspiring. Transcendental students are those who undergo great penance in being trained by hearing the Vedas from a bona fide spiritual master. Not only must they hear from the activities of the Lord, but, see, this is a very important point. Not only must they hear about the activities of the Lord, but they must also hear about the transcendental qualities of the devotees who are constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. A pure devotee of the Lord cannot be separated from the lotus feet of the Lord for even a moment. Undoubtedly, the Lord is always within the hearts of all living creatures, but they hardly know about it because they are deluded by the illusory material energy. Yeah, I just want to emphasize a few more points here. The devotees, however, realize the presence of the Lord, and therefore they can always see the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. Such pure devotees of the Lord are as glorious as the Lord. I repeat this, such pure devotees of the Lord are as glorious as the Lord. They are, in fact, recommended by the Lord. They are, in fact, recommended by the Lord as more worshipable than the Lord himself. Worship of the devotees is more potent than worship of the Lord. It is, therefore, the duty of the transcendental students to hear of pure devotees, as explained by similar devotees of the Lord, because one cannot explain about the Lord or his devotee unless one happens to be a pure devotee himself. So very beautiful verse. There are 3-4 points here. Anybody remembers one point from this purport? Yes, more worshipable than the Lord. Yes. Anything else?
The Lord recommends that the devotees are even more worshipable than himself.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. Thank you. Anything else? I really like this point. Yes, anyone else?
Those devotees have the Lord's heart, Lord's feet on their heart.
Yeah. Remember me. Yes. See, the beautiful point here is transcendental students must also hear about the transcendental qualities of the devotees. Yeah. So with this, I'm not qualified to speak about such an exalted Vaishnava, but for my own purification, I'm speaking and repeating here. So, because talking about such an exalted personality in itself is a very glorious task. Yeah. But to remember, think, and speak about Sripad Madhvacharya is very purifying, at most purifying. When Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he discusses, so many Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and there is different branches, Nityananda Prabhu Shakha, Advaita Acharya Shakha, so many devotees, Vaishnavas are mentioned, and then at the end he says, just remembering their name is very purifying. So on Wednesdays we have this Chaitanya Charitamrita class led by Sri Krishnavada Prabhu. I was just remembering this, how you are helping us remember those names. So it's very purifying just to hear their names also is very purifying. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, in the 10th chapter, text 99, it's also discussed that Raghunath Das Goswami was chanting 2,000 names of the Vaishnavas or offering obeisances in his mind, 2,000 Vaishnavas every day. So, very inspiring. So, with this, we'll start. Who is Sripad Madhvacharya? Okay, so it's explained that he's our Sampradaya Acharya, for the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. There are 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas in this Kali Yuga. Yeah.
Sri Sampradaya.
Yeah, Sri Sampradaya. And who's the Acharya for that?
Ramanuja.
Ramanujacharya. Yes, what is the other Sampradaya?
Kumar.
Yes. Who's the Acharya?
That's Nimbarka Swami.
Rudra Sampradaya is Vallabhacharya or Vishnu Swami. Yeah. And Kumar Sampradaya? Nimbar. Yeah. And the Brahma Sampradaya is the Madhvacharya. Yeah. So now in this Brahma Madhva Sampradaya, this is called as the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, right? We are coming in this Brahma Madhva Sampradaya. If you see in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita, at the end of the first chapter, there are many names given, right? All the way from Srila Prabhupada to, to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, to Bhakti Vinod Thakur, to Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, then Vishwanath Chakravarti, Narottam Das Thakur, then our Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, then the 6 Goswamis, then there is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then above that is Ishwar Puri, Madhavendra Puri, and then who is after that? Lakshmi Pati Tirtha, then there is Vyasa Tirtha, Brahmanya Tirtha, right? So Tirtha, so this is connecting all the way to Madhvacharya. All this Tirtha is coming from the Madhva Sampradaya. Yeah, so this is very, very so Madhavendra Puri took initiation from Lakshmipati Tirtha. Yes? So, who took initiation from Vyasa Tirtha. So this is how we are connected to the Madhva Sampradaya, and this is clearly accepted and defined. Yeah, it is an authorized fact that we belong to this Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So the foundation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Achintya Veda, Veda Tattva is also the Tattvavadis, the Madhvacharya philosophy. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, he points out that the followers of Madhvacharya were called as Tattvavadis. And one of the reasons this name was given is to differentiate them from Mayavadis. And I'll explain these terms in a little bit. Yeah. So, if you go to Udupi, where Madhvacharya appeared, he's, and even in our books we see an incarnation of Vayudev. They say Pratamo Hanumanta, Vidya Bhima, and Vidya Madhva. or Ananda Tirtha. This is another name of Madhvacharya. Actually, if you go to Udupi, this is the name which is more popular, Ananda Tirtha. So, he's also considered as, so this was about, the appearance was somewhere 1238 really, so roughly about 800 years ago. And he's also considered as Mukhya Prana, incarnation of that life force. Yeah. And he was a very powerful personality, a pure devotee of the Lord. And as we discussed earlier, the Lord sends his pure devotees, his personal representatives, why? To fulfill the mission of the Lord. And the Lord had a very specific mission for Sripad Madhvacharya. And that was to defeat and destroy the Mayavadi philosophy or the Shankaracharya's philosophy. Okay, this was the specific mission of Sripad Madhvacharya, to defeat and destroy the Mayavadi philosophy, the Shankaracharya philosophy. Yeah, so actually, prior to him, another great Acharya, Ramanujacharya, also had come, while part of his mission also was that, but he couldn't fully complete that, so it was Madhvacharya who came and completed that mission. And he was a born enemy of the Mayavadis. Yeah. And if you see his commentaries are primarily based on defeating Mayavadi philosophy. And this is one of the reasons it is explained why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very happy with Madhvacharya. And we will read later that he accepted Madhvacharya's Sampradaya as his own Sampradaya. Yeah. And because this is very important, because he said Mayavadi is a philosophy that will destroy devotion. Yeah, and that's why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has strictly forbidden us from associating with Mayavadi philosophers. Yeah, there is a very beautiful verse in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita where he explains, which very nicely explains the Mayavad philosophy. That's why I wanted to wait to explain these two terms, Mayavad, Tattvavad. So there is a beautiful purport Srila Prabhupada gives in the Madhya Lila chapter 6, text 169, where says Mayavadi Bhashya Sunile Koye Sarvanash. So I'll quickly read. If one associates with the Mayavad philosophy, meaning hears the commentary of Shankaracharya, his devotional life is spoiled. Factually, the devotional service of the Lord is described in the Vedanta Sutra, but the Mayavadi philosophers, the Shankarites, prepared a commentary known as Shariraka Bhashya, in which the transcendental form of the Lord is denied. This is Mayavadi. And Tattvavadi is where it establishes the transcendental form of the Lord. Yeah? Right? If you flip this Mayavadi statement, then it becomes Tattvavadi. Yeah? So, the Mayavadi philosophers think that the living entity is identical with the Supreme Soul, Brahman. No. We are tiny, small part and parcels of the Lord, where the Lord is unlimited. Yeah? He can never become one or equal to God. Yeah? So, you see right here, you flip that statement like this. So their commentaries on the Vedanta Sutra are completely opposed to the principle of devotional service. And we learn that the whole goal of life is loving devotional service. And the Mayavadi philosophy is completely opposed to that. Yeah. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore wants us to avoid these commentaries. If one indulges in hearing the Shankarite Shariraka Bhasya, he will certainly be bereft of all real knowledge. Yeah. So also, he goes on to explain. It's a very beautiful purport, 6.169 from Madhya Lila. Yeah. So the ambitious Mayavadi philosophers desire to merge into the existence of the Lord, and this may be accepted as the Ayurveda Mukti. However, this form of mukti means denying one's individual existence. See, we always continue to exist. Yeah. So Prabhupada writes, in other words, it's a kind of spiritual suicide. This is absolutely opposed to the philosophy of Bhakti Yoga. So we can understand from this purport, a very heavy purport, that why we should not. Actually, I had a little experience. I was in India recently, and my father-in-law, I live in a gated community there, so my father-in-law had arranged for. He asked me if I could speak on the Bhagavad Gita, and he arranged for a few people there, 20-25 people. I said, sure, if there's an opportunity to distribute some books and, speak Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, why not? And then one person came there, after the whole thing, he says, oh, your philosophy is so heavily based on bhakti and devotion and devotees. You have to, once hear this other philosophy, impersonal philosophy. So, spiritual suicide. So, anyways, also Srila Prabhupada describes Madhvacharya's mission in the Adi Leela 7th chapter, text 110 also. And also, I noticed and also heard that Srila Prabhupada gives references to Srimad Madhvacharya many times in his commentaries in Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, hundreds of times. Yeah. So this just shows how much respect Srila Prabhupada had for Srimad Madhvacharya, and which, these purports to Srimad Bhagavatam, which Srila Prabhupada considered as his personal spiritual ecstasy, and so many times he has referred to. And even in the 10th chapter, at the end of the first chapter of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the first chapter is titled Advent of Lord Krishna. Anyone remembers what is at the end of that chapter? There is notes, several pages of notes that Srila Prabhupada has given, and this is commentary of Sripad Madhvacharya on the transmigration of the soul. 12-13 pages of commentary is there from Sripad Madhvacharya. Yeah? So, actually it is explained that he came to kill all these Mayavadi, demoniac people, but he decided to kill the philosophy, the Mayavadi philosophy, and establish the teachings. Yeah. This is one of his, as I said, one of his most important contributions. You have to remember that he single-handedly destroyed the Mayavadi philosophers, and so many of them. We won't have time to go through all of them. And Prabhupada, in the purport to the 9th chapter, text 245, he summarizes the life of Sripad Madhvacharya in about a couple of pages. Very beautifully he summarizes. This Madhvacharya, as I said, was a very great devotee of the Lord Krishna, and his life is very inspiring to read about. And he never entered into household life. When you read through it, right from childhood, he was dedicated, right from his childhood, completely dedicated to serving the Lord. And he's traveled widely all throughout India to defeat these Mayavadi philosophers. And if you see this typical picture of Madhvacharya, you see this.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Dvaita.
So,
Dvaita.
yeah, Dvaita means what? The living entity and the super soul are different. Yeah. So, his father's name was Madhya Geha Bhatta. Yeah. His mother's name is not given in this Srila Prabhupada's purport, but it seems that the name is Vedavati, and this Madhvacharya was born in Pajaka Kshetra in Karnataka near Mysore. Yeah, and his father would every day travel to Udupi from Balipakshetra to the Ananteshwar temple and would perform daily worship there. Yeah? And he was a Shivali Brahmana, yeah? But who worshipped Lord Shiva, but it is my understanding that he understood that Vishnu is the Supreme Lord. Yeah? And he took the deity in the Ananteshwar temple to be representing Lord Parashuram. Yeah? So he had a desire to have a son, and he expressed his desire to his wife, and they took vows for 12 years. They were observing, penance and drank just milk. Yeah, at that time, and they were leading a very pious life, chanting the names of Lord Narayan, and they were blessed with a boy, but this was already predicted, by, I'm not very sure if it was the priest of this Ananteshwar temple or somebody who was in that temple who climbed onto this flagpole at the entrance of the Ananteshwar temple, and he predicted that very soon this incarnation of Validev will be appearing in Udupi, to be a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, and further he also predicted that this devotee will destroy all the impersonalists, defeat all the impersonalists, and establish the personal form of the Lord. Yeah. So, as predicted, anyway, the son was born, and Madhyageha Bhatta at that time was in the temple, and he came back, he did this Japa Karma. Astrologers were invited, and guess what? They found out that all the 32 auspicious characteristics matched with that of Validev. Yeah, and Madhyageha Bhatta, when he saw this beautiful moon-like face of his child, he named him as Vasudev. Yeah, his father's name is Madhyageha Bhatta, appeared in Balipakshetra, and he named his son as Vasudev. Yeah, and so there is some lack of clarity on the exact date when he appeared, but Srila Prabhupada in the purport writes it is 1238 AD. Yeah. So he lived for about 80 years. Yeah. His grain giving ceremony was a very interesting one. In the purport to that text 9.245, Prabhupada gives a little bit about his childhood pastimes, and his grain giving ceremony. One day his mother stepped out of the house for some household work, and they had a daughter, obviously an elder one. She was asked to take care of this Vasudev. And just like every other child, as soon as the mother lifts, the child cries, milk, milk, I want milk. And his sister tried a lot to console him, but he wouldn't listen. And then there was a bag of rough grains, which is meant for bulls and cows, was in the house. She opened it up, and some of the grains fell on the floor. And this Vasudev started playing with those. And then she said, okay, the kid is distracted, let me go find the mother. And she goes to find the mother. And guess what happens when she comes back? When the mother comes back, any guesses?
He ate all.
Yeah, almost all of that, which explains 40 kgs. Can you imagine? And his mother is shocked. Even a young bull will not eat this much. How could this kid eat so much? Yeah, and she was mad at her daughter for allowing him to do that. Yeah, so this was his Annaprasan ceremony. Very interesting. And then there is also another pastime that Srila Prabhupada mentioned. And remember, this was very young age, 2 years, 3 years. And another wonderful pastime Prabhupada mentions is how he cleared his father's debt with some tamarind seeds. Yeah, Vasudev, was very playful. And one day he came, to his father and said, I'm hungry, please get me some food. And his father was obviously very much in anxiety because he had taken a bull from this one person named Kakra Shetty. And he had to repay the loan. Yeah, and he didn't have money. And now this person, Kakra Shetty, came right at the entrance and wanted to, at the doorstep and was fasting. Give me the money. So his father was obviously very nervous and anxious how to address this. And Vasudev said, don't worry, I'll take care of him. I'll take care of him. You just tell mother to make some nice food for me. Yeah? And then, Vasudev, they had a nice tamarind tree in their backyard. So he would always go and collect those tamarind seeds and then, play them as if they were money. And it is explained that he called this Kakra Shetty into the backyard, and Kakra Shetty was like, this is some kind of a joke. I'm here for money, and this 3-year-old kid is calling me in the backyard. He puts this tamarind seeds in his hand, and they turn into gold coins. Gold coins. And so he was obviously very happy, Kakra Shetty, because the gold he got was much more than the cost of the bull. Yeah. And then it's explained that he returned, and then he got a much more valuable seed, which was the seed of devotion, Bhakti-Lata Beach from Vasudev, from his association with Vasudev. And then, there are many such childhood pastimes of Vasudev. And when he was 3 years old, he just disappeared from a festival site. Just like that, sneaked out. And he was somewhere else in the Ananteshwar temple, and his parents were here looking for him. Where did this boy disappear? And then finally they found out and made it their way to the Ananteshwar temple and asked him, how did you get here? And guesses what his response was?
Somebody brought him.
And who is that somebody? He said, Lord Narayana accompanied me. There were 2 temples. There is one is the Chandrabuleshwar temple of Lord Shiva, and then there is the Ananteshwar temple. So, and then there are some very amazing other pastimes also when, he was very intelligent, very knowledgeable of the Shastras. Just at the age of 4, once his mother took him to a festival. Most of the festivals at that time, there were pujas, yagyas, dramas, and discourses. And there was this one person who was giving a discourse, and immediately our Vasudev, 3 to 4 years, and he pointed out, what you are speaking is not in line with what Vyasadeva and Sukadeva Goswami spoke. You are speculating. This is not authoritative. And they were like, okay. Everybody was astonished, and they were, okay, why don't you tell what it is? And he answered. And similar episode happened with his father, Madhya Geha Bhatta. He was also very learned, and he was speaking from the Bhagavatam, and he misexplained something, and Vasudev corrected him. Yeah. So there are some really amazing pastimes, and finally, at the age of 5, his parents conducted the Upanayana ceremony, the sacred thread giving ceremony, and it is explained. Usually they do it at much older age, but his father found that Vasudeva was spiritually very advanced, so he did it at a much young age. Typically, it's my understanding that they do at maybe 7, 8, 9, but for him it was done at 5, and his father personally performed this. Yeah, a beautiful explanation is given in the Madhva Vijaya and also in this life of Madhvacharya by Srila Prabhupada's disciple, is Purna Pratna Prabhu. Yeah. So, so his father performed the ceremony, shaved his head, taught him about Achaman, how to do Achaman before eating, before doing deity worship. Everything he learned very effortlessly. This was another amazing thing about Madhvacharya, that whatever his father taught him, one time, no repetition. Everything he heard, one time he got it. Yeah, one time. So, and then after this Upanayana, there was an interesting episode that happened where, there was a snake demon called Maniman. Yeah, the snake was right there in the bushes, and who tried, actually when he was playing, Vasudeva was playing with his friends, it bit him. Getting this was a huge snake, not with just one hood, but 5 hoods. Yeah. But nothing happened to our Vasudeva. Nothing happened. Yeah. So
Was it Shesha?
yeah.
Was it Shesha?
No, no. Nothing happened, it's just he was. See, I just want to take a minute here that if you consider him to be a merely small boy, then it seems very unbelievable, right? If you consider him to be a merely small boy, it's very unbelievable how can a snake bite him and nothing happens, no marks on him. But remember, he was not an ordinary boy. He was not. He was an incarnation of Vayudev. He was Bhima. He was Hanuman. Yeah. So we have to keep this in mind. For such a person, what is difficult to accomplish? What is difficult to accomplish? Nothing. And also the same day, same time, he would also be playing, and his mother would call out for him, Vasudev, where are you? Where are you? And then, just like that, wherever he was, he would appear in one jump. And I wanted to tell this other thing. Yes, a lot of people might think some of these things are fictitious, right? How many of you think it is?
No.
Anyone? Or somebody from the back raised their hand. Right? No. You can go to that place and find the impressions, the footprint, even the snake's footprint is there, which was pressed by, I forgot to mention this. How did he kill that snake? With his left toe. Our right hand is strong. He killed it with his left toe. Man, it's no ordinary person. Yeah? So, but this imprint is still there. They have made a shrine there in that area. We can go look. So it's not. Even in jumping of this Vasudeva, that impressions are also still there of his footprint. So it's not fictitious. Yeah? So his news spread like this. And I also want to now go to the other part. Madhvacharya had many names. Yeah? One of the names was Ananda Tirtha, but also when he at the time of his sannyas, he took sannyas from Achyuta Preksha at the age of 12, and when he took initiation from Achyuta Preksha, he was given the name Purna Pragnatirtha. Actually there is I don't want to talk much about Achyuta Preksha. There's a couple of different opinions about it, but it is said that his Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that externally he was a Mayavadi, but internally he was a Vaishnava, and this was something that was going on at that time because everybody was very scared about the Mayavadis trying to kill the Vaishnavas. So anyways, he wanted to take sannyas from Achyuta Preksha, and his father was not at all willing. His father tried many times not to give, asked him not to take sannyas. First he told him, wait till I leave this material world. Then he said, why don't you get married and take sannyas at a later age? Many times his father tried to stop. Finally, you know what he did? His father fell at his son's feet and begged him on behalf of his wife Vedavati. So and his response was, I've already made up my mind. And the Lord has given signal. One explanation given is if an elderly person in the family prostrates in front of the son, only in one situation you would do that, when your son becomes a sannyasi. Other than that, it is said you don't prostrate in front of your son, the parents, the father. So he went to Achyuta Preksha also to tell him don't give sannyas. But Achyuta Preksha didn't respond. Anyways, finally he agreed, that okay, after you have another son, I will accept sannyas. And then Prabhupada explains in the purport that his father never agreed. his father never agreed for sannyas, but it seems when he threatened that his mother forcefully agreed, that's what I read, but his father never agreed. Yeah, so he accepted sannyas at the age of 12 years and was given the name Purna Prajnatirtha. Yeah, and you see, generally we talk about brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa, ashrama at the age of 60, 65, 70, right? Here at the age of 12, yeah. So, and in Madhva Sampradaya, as I said, most sannyasis are given the name Tirtha, yeah. So, but it's also explained that later on, Achyuta Preksha was very happy. Achyuta Preksha actually was very happy to hear from his disciple, yeah. And he also gave him the name Anumana Tirtha, yeah, because he was very sound in logic. Yeah, and he could cut this entire Mayavadi philosophy and not just defeat complex logic, but simple logic and common sense. I just wanted to, so much we can discuss, but he also took spiritual guidance from Vyasadeva. He went twice to Badrikashram to meet Vyasadeva. He completed his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita after taking spiritual guidance from Vyasadeva. And he also got this Salagrama Shila from Vyasadeva, and he traveled extensively. He met the disciples of Ramanujacharya, and he defeated many Mayavadi philosophers, and some of them also became his disciples. And then there are two other things. We have almost time. 2 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. I do want to read the glorious departure from this book. But also you see the Udupi temple, yeah, where he established this Udupi temple. One day when he was at this Malpe beach, there was a boat going to Dwarka which was sinking. And Madhvacharya, Prabhupada says somehow in the Prabhupada, but because he was an incarnation of Vayudev, he was somehow able to stop that boat from drowning. Yeah. And then there was a big sandalwood that was being carried, and they gave that as a gift to Madhvacharya. And somehow while it was coming to him, it fell down and broke. And then a beautiful deity of Krishna came out from that, which had a stick in one hand and some food in the other hand. And that is the deity that he personally carried with him. It was so heavy that even 30 people couldn't carry it. Yeah, he personally carried it. He established, and his disciples, 8 mathas were established. So I just want to read, because it's the disappearance day of Madhvacharya, just quickly. Please listen to this very carefully. One day, as Madhvacharya was seated upon his asana in the Ananteshwar temple at Udupi, surrounded by hundreds of disciples, he began to recite verses from his favorite Upanishad, the Aitreya. There was a festive atmosphere, and his eyes were bright and widely expanded like lotus flowers. His face appeared very charming with his sublime smile, and his voice was very sweet, powerful, and pure. Suddenly, celestial voices could be heard exclaiming, "All glories to you, Vayu, who have enlivened the fallen conditioned souls. All glories to you, who are very dear to Lord Ramachandra. All glories to you, the most powerful Bhimasena. O Madhva, you have saved us from all the misdirected philosophies that are prominent in Kali Yuga. All glories to you." As drums were sounded, Madhva's disciples looked towards the sky. There they saw showers of flowers coming from the hands of celestial beings. Upon seeing and hearing all this, everyone became jubilant in transcendental ecstasy. When the celestial flowers completely covered Madhva's head, 2 intimate disciples came forward to brush them away. When they removed the flowers, however, much to their dismay, these loyal followers discovered that Madhvacharya had departed from this world of birth and death. He had wound up his earthly pastimes and returned to the Lord of his life. In his Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnaya, Madhvacharya had written, "The demigods customarily do not spend much time on earth, and after completing their missions, or when their celestial origins are revealed, The pastime of Madhvacharya's disappearance took place in the morning of the 9th day in the bright fortnight of the month of Magha in the year 1317 AD. Sripad Madhvacharya ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. I beg for forgiveness if there were any inconsistencies. I am not qualified to do justice to this topic. I tried a little bit to some extent, but there's a vast, there's so many conversations between him and so many Mayavadis that he defeated. I couldn't name also some of them. That was the senior much exalted leaders. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any corrections?
Thank you, Prananath Prabhu, for that class on Sripad Madhvacharya. I want to mention really quick, because I see a lot of children here, and sometimes it's not so comfortable for a child to be in a philosophy class. So we have a Sunday school right upstairs in the next building over, ages, I believe, 5 all the way up to 18. So if you have a child that's here tonight and hasn't joined our Sunday school, stop at the front desk and you can find out more about it. And it'll be a much more enjoyable experience for them, and also makes it the listening experience for everyone else. So we're going to have Kirtan and Arti right now. Thank you again, Prananath Prabhu, for your talk tonight. Hare Krishna.